Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is Rich Sandomeno. Rich is a jewelry maker, fabricator, hot rod builder, and he also happens to run a really cool art installation here in Los Angeles. We talk about all that stuff on this episode. This is one of my favorite episodes to record all season long. Rich is such a cool and interesting guy. I think people are going to love this episode. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe and click the little bell, share, like, and comment below. If you are listening to this podcast, subscribe wherever it is you get your podcast content and give us a review. That stuff, as always, is very, very helpful to us. We now have merch. You can find the links to the t-shirts that are made for us via Warlord Clothing, and we have pins, buttons, stickers, all that stuff at the Big Cartel link down below. As always, you can find us on social media at Anyway Whatever Podcast, anyway.whateverpodcast.com. My personal Instagram is at Maximum Fluoride for my art and design, and on Twitter at AWP_podcast. So yeah, sit down and tuck in. Rich is a really cool, interesting guy. People are going to absolutely love this. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is Rich Sandomeno. Rich is a fabricator, jewelry maker, hot rod maker, and all sorts of other cool stuff. What's up, Rich? How are you?
Pretty good, Mike. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm good, man. I'm doing good. Obviously, full disclosure, I always have to say this, because if this shows anything, I want it to always be kind of honest. And me and Rich already recorded this, and I had technical problems on my end. And I know people are probably tired of hearing that, but this goddamn piece of software I use is 90% of the time it works half the time. And so it just didn't capture his audio, and it's still, everybody's like, oh, use Zoom or use OBS, and I can't. So we're recording it again. So we recorded this already. So this is just, hopefully we can get it like a little more concise. Like we talked for like 3 hours last time, which is,
I think
way longer than we needed to go.
You don't often get second chances in life, so I'll take it when I can get it, man.
That's awesome. Me and Rich are friends from LA, from the art scene, and our wives are friends, and we've been friends for about 10 years. And Rich is an amazing craftsman. And right up front, let's give everybody your social media so that people can check out your work. Where can people find you?
Instagram is the most active. It's Spragworks. Just Google, put at Spragworks, and you'll see a bunch of the stuff I do. Maybe some pictures of my dogs.
That's awesome. That's awesome, everybody. It's National Dog Day today.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I can hear him in the background.
Little mutts.
So, Rich, like I said, Rich is an amazing craftsman and fabricator. For a while, he has a cool studio in Echo Park, in northeast Los Angeles. And for a while, I was trying to get some space in his space before I moved out here to the suburbs and built my studio. But he's got this amazing workspace that's full of things like kind of what you see in the video right now. So I know for a long time it was primarily kind of jewelry. And when we were talking previously, you had said that had kind of calmed down a little bit and you were doing more general fabrication work.
Yeah, well, yeah, mostly like, we'll probably get into it later, like the wholesale side of jewelry really kind of just fell out and changed like about 10 years ago. And then, so there's Spragworks as a line of jewelry. And then there's what I do now mostly is custom work. Like people will email me with an idea or a concept and we kind of work through it and do it. And then there's also a handful of artists that I work for that help them develop their artwork, make their artwork. And then there's a couple other vendors around that just hire me on as a fabricator to like have a bit of a reputation to be able to just figure some stuff out. I do some prop stuff, some like custom jewelry stuff, some car stuff every once in a while, and then whatever. I don't, my shop is kind of like a job shop. You can come to me with whatever, and if I have time, I'll do it. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I remember you were working on a pickup truck, and I believe you finished that thing up. What year is that truck?
I was a 31 Model A pickup. That's my truck. It was like the Sprag Works work truck. So it's like a 31 wide bed Model A pickup with a 56 Olds motor, and it's kind of built up. Like I figured, like if I was me in the late 50s, early 60s, like what would my work truck look like? So
yeah, it's a badass truck. I love that thing. How long did it take you to put that thing together?
I'm going to say about 5 years, 4 or 5 years, again, because I couldn't work on it all the time. And, sometimes money was an issue. And I built that at my shop, which was super distracting. And it was really the first hot rod I ever built. I've had cars and motorcycles my whole life. That was the first thing I actually had like a vision and saw through from bought a truck, completely tore it down, had a friend of mine help me. Give me some general, direction, and I just did it, which is kind of how I do most things. Just I have a desire to do it, and then just figure out how to do it.
That's exactly how I do everything.
Yeah,
I'm not waiting around. I'm like, I want to do this thing. Like when I started painting the ice hockey goalie mask, it was like, I painted one, and the first one I did was actually for a customer. You know what I mean? It was like that. And then that business is, I just grew that business super fast because I was like, I want to know how to do this. And I just taught myself and figured it out. And the same thing with this podcast. It was just like, I just started doing it, I'll figure it out as I go. I'm not going to wait for the right time.
There is no right time. It's like waiting for, my tooth fell out. I'm going to just keep it out.
We had a conversation about his and my teeth before we started.
It just flew out. I get a hard F or a T, it just flies out. My
dentist, when that was happening to me, my dentist was like, well, just chew a little piece of gum and stick it down in there and just stick it back on until you can get into the office.
Yeah, that doesn't work. You're fucking bullshit. It reminds me, dude, when I was in the 7th grade, I had that temporary tooth. I had it was probably like the best teacher I ever had in my life, man. His name was Mr. Flynn. He was like a Korean War veteran. He wore makeup because he had some shrapnel damage, And,
wow.
Kids used to pick on him, dude. They'd make fun of him. If you dropped the books, he'd hit the ground. And he was every Friday, dude, he would read us Edgar Allan Poe stories. And he would fucking shut the blinds, and he read the stories with such... Oh man, it was the best. But anyway, I remember one time talking to him, and I said something, and my tooth flew out of my mouth and hit him right in the chest. And I had just had chicken pox, whatever, dude. I was a mess. I think he kind of appreciated it. But anyway, yeah, that's enough about my teeth. What were we talking about?
I don't even know what we were talking about.
Just teaching yourself how to do it. It's like
right.
That whole inspiration is for amateurs, dude. You just fucking do it. You just gotta fucking do it. Otherwise, your bills are gonna come and go, and you're gonna be fucking not gonna have the money to pay for it. So you got to figure it out. I was thinking about that. I was telling a friend of mine about the goalie mask stuff, and that's man, how did that even start? Was it you did it for a favor, or and then how does that take off? I'm not a hockey head, so I don't realize that there's this whole huge world out there.
Yeah, a lot of people when it was really my core business, it was always interesting to tell people that's what I was doing for a living, and then also that somebody in Los Angeles does that for a living. You'd think it'd just all be guys in Canada and Wisconsin or something. It's. I have been playing goalie since I was 7 years old for 42 years. And so I've been around goaltending all my entire life. And back in the early 90s when I was running a hockey league and I was coaching kids, and I was kind of specifically a goalie coach. And some of the goalies that played for me had masks and they were white, and I had some art skills and I owned an airbrush, and I was like, I just asked one of the kids like, oh, you think I could try to paint your mask? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so we just did like a simple like red, white, and blue stars and stripes thing. And then then it was like, once one person saw it, it was like, oh, can you do mine? And then it kind of grew for a few years. It was like a little side business for a couple years. And I was getting pretty good at it. I figured out that most of the ins and outs. And then I moved to Los Angeles in 95, and I was in an apartment. I didn't have any place I could paint. And so it went by the wayside. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, one of the kids that I painted a mask for when he was like, I don't know, 14 or something, his kid started playing, and he got a hold of me on Facebook, and he's like, hey man, do you think you could paint a mask for my kid? And I was like, I haven't painted a mask since I painted your mask. It's been like 25 years at least. And he's like, well, and I was like, I don't have an airbrush or a compressor or anything to do it with. He's like, well, if I buy you this stuff to do it, would you be interested in doing it? And I was like, sure. So, he sent me the mask, and I got an airbrush set up, and I painted. I kind of did. I went into the YouTube university for a little while and kind of figured out the basic ins and outs of how to do it. Like how to make stencils at the vinyl cutter. And then I would make all this stuff in Illustrator, and then I go down to the mall and have the guy at the kiosk in the mall cut it, the guy who cuts the little Calvin peeing on the Ford logo. That guy. I'd have that guy cut my vinyl, and I'd go home, and so it was a harsh learning curve, because I tried to use the modern water-based airbrush paints, and those did not want to adhere well to the surface. And so it took me about 6 months to figure out the ins and outs. But the first mask I did, he took it to the rink, and like 4 parents right away were like, who painted that, and he paint my kid's mask? And so I had customers like right away. And then I found myself in this situation of they weren't holding up very well because of the materials I was using, and I was trying to learn. And then I actually started taking some airbrush courses at an airbrush place down in Southern California. Shout out Coast Airbrush. And they taught me how to essentially is like learning how to paint a car.
Yeah.
It's the exact same process as painting like a fiberglass panel on a car or something.
Sure.
So once I figured that out and switched over to automotive paints, I started painting. I painted my mask, and then, I go to the rink and play. And then I just started kind of amassing this little customer base. And I found on Facebook, there was a message board. It was just like a Facebook group of guys who, it was just a place to buy, sell, trade ice hockey goalie gear. And there was like 20,000 people all over the world, for everyone from NHL goalies all the way down to parents of kid goalies. And I just started posting my masks in there like, hey, this is one I just finished. And it just started snowballing. Like, it took about 6 months for me to get good enough at it that the masks that I could charge somebody, a professional rate for it. And then once that happened, man, it was like out of control. Like it was like a 60-hour a week job, like within 6 months. And then, I got a little burnt on it. It's living in California is so expensive that you can really only charge what the market will allow. And someone who lives in some small town in Minnesota or in Canada even, if everybody charges the same amount and you live someplace that's twice as expensive, you half your profit's gone.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So I was like working way too hard for the amount of money I was making back on it. And I got a little bit burnt out on it, but actually, I've said before, people who listen to the show know that I'm like starting this YouTube art channel where I just film myself making art, and I'm going to be painting some masks for that. So I have some in the works right now. So yeah, that's how you end up becoming a professional goalie mask painter when you live in Los Angeles.
Yeah, just kind of go for it. When I was a kid, I had, I was always drawing and shit like that.
Well, you're from New Jersey, correct?
I am from New Jersey, Northeast New Jersey. And I was a bit of a troubled kid. And so, yeah, my parents got me an airbrush and all that kind of shit. And I was like, I don't know, man. I just never had the confidence, dude. Like, I could do it, but people would ask me to do stuff, paint a jacket or a fucking wheel cover on a van. But even this was even like way before I was driving and stuff. And I just didn't have, like, I didn't have the confidence, dude. I didn't have the confidence to put myself out there, or I didn't have the drive to fucking hunker down and get better. I just wanted to go hang out on a fucking street corner and fucking with my friends, you know what I mean, and get in trouble. Totally. Like I didn't, and I it's like if you wish that we could like go back. Not that I'd ever want to be a kid again, but you go back like with an adult mind. It's like you think you fucking know everything, man. It's just like fuck. So I always admired that people have this like vision to kind of really better themselves at what they did at an early age, because that shit didn't happen for me until I was in my 20s. You know what I mean? I had to go through some fucking life-altering fucking experiences before I fucking got to a point where I wanted to better myself. But I did take some airbrush classes at School of Visual Arts, like when I was just trying to like. So originally, I wanted a tattoo. You know what I mean? And there was this. At the time, this tattoo artist in Jersey, he's up in Sonoma County now, this guy Shotzi Gorman, who's like, he's like OG tattoo guy. And he was like, if you want a tattoo, you got to take a drawing class. He's like, fuck this stencil shit. Like, you got to learn how to fucking draw. The fundamentals of drawing, of, composition, color, shading, all that stuff. And I don't know, dude. I took that class. I was like, I took an airbrushing class. I was like, And then I took a jewelry class, and it kind of stuck, and that's how it all kind of started. And I was like probably in like '93 or something like that.
Yeah. For me, I was like the kid who was like 15 years old, and I was like, I don't ever want to do anything else but make art, and so I just. Even when I started being in bands, the only reason to be in a band was that I would have a band that couldn't say no to me making art for them, because that's like really what I wanted to do. And so like I was supremely focused on making art, even from the time I was probably like 11 or 12. And then I was doing the hockey thing, and I would like try to do the hockey thing, and then that would kind of go away and the art would come back, and then I started skateboarding, and then it was all about skateboarding, but the art was always there. Was always there for me, because I just knew that was all I ever wanted to do with my life. Like, I didn't ever see myself being like, well, I guess I'll go to college and like be a lawyer or whatever. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm going to be an artist. I'm just going to figure it out.
Yeah, I fucking like, I just sold myself out, dude. Like, I was like, I didn't have the confidence, and I was not going to go to college, and I had been in a fair amount of trouble. By the time I was in the 8th grade, my parents were like, well, you're going to a fucking VOTEC school. And my parents are great, but it's like a, working class upbringing. So there's like this idea of like being a fucking prop maker. Like, it wasn't in their it just wasn't in their mind. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like you're a mechanic, a machinist. You're some.
And that was what your first job was you were a diesel mechanic, correct?
Oh yeah. And that's like, and the stuff I do today, a lot of the fabrication and welding, like I learned all that shit in high school, man. Like, and granted, like, I quit being a diesel mechanic so I started making jewelry in like '93, and right away I had, built studios at home and stuff like that. I always kind of had a little studio. I was like I said, like I would paint shit. Like, I was super into snowboarding, so I painted all my snowboard shit, and I went through this like pinstriping phase and wanted to like, but I never really like, I do it in my basement. But I would just always make a jewelry, and it's the same thing. You make it for some people, you give it to people, start wearing it out, and people want it, and I don't really have any idea of what to charge for it. But, silver was cheap at the time, and I was just pumping shit out, and then I quit. I had a really good union job as a mechanic, work in the city, New York City a lot and stuff. And I quit that job in like 2001. and I had been there for 10 years. And it was this crazy thing because like it was a forever job. It was a job that you didn't leave. You know what I mean? Like I
like
made really good
longshoreman
money.
or
There's people
that.
yeah, dude, there was people that worked there for fucking 40 years. You know what I mean? And it was that moment. I remember like, it was that moment, dude, where like, and I have to say, before this whole thing, like I went through this fucking moment where I realized I just had a lot of baggage that I was holding against my old man, but I never really knew I had it, dude. I never knew. My dad and I were always tight, but there was this thing, you know what I mean? And once we cleared that up, dude, it kind of all happened around the same time. And I remember like telling him, like, I'm gonna quit. I'm fucking quitting this job, and I'm gonna start making jewelry like full time and stuff like that. And because I was at that time, like, I was doing tattoo conventions and music festivals and street fair, like whatever the fuck I could set up a spot. I was setting up and selling shit, you know. And it was the kind of thing where he was like, this moment that I never knew about him was like, you know, like I was a kid. I was 4. My brother was just born. No, I was just born. And my old man was like, he had this like great job working for Coca-Cola, you know? And he was like, I fucking quit that job and opened up an auto repair shop. And he's like, you know, I rolled the dice. And so he kind of gave me his blessing. And it was just like weird moment that I had that really kind of like looking back was just super pivotal, man. Cause it was just a great experience. And it's been in those early days, because I had that good job. I had bought a condo in Cliffside Park, New Jersey, which is like right in between the George Washington Bridge and the Lincoln Tunnel, like up on the Palisades and stuff. And I owned it for 4 years, and I didn't buy it for much money. I was still broke though, you know what I mean? Like 70 grand at the time was a lot of fucking money. And I sold it for double the money. And then that's what I fucking, like, I went to Thailand for 4 months, and I moved to Brooklyn when I got back. And I had that nest egg that kind of like fund Spragworks for whatever it was, you know what I mean? And it really, I mean, that's how I was able to do it. And I was continuing to do shows and just, you know, like just grow on it. Like there's this thing of like, I think we spoke about it a little bit last time. It's like, you could have this idea of like what I think I'm going to make or what I'm going to do. And then it's like, when you start doing it, there's this thing that we don't like think about. It's how other people are going to react to it and respond to it. And then it takes on this whole other thing. And then it's just up to me or us or whatever to kind of keep it going. But the whole time really just wanting to like make what I wanted to make, not really make what the fuck you thought I should make.
Right. Yeah. And as a professional maker, whether you're an artist or whatever it is, even a tattoo artist, like, you know, you sometimes are beholden to the paycheck, you know what I mean? Like, and you end up doing stuff that isn't necessarily super gratifying on a personal level, but you know, sometimes mortgages do, and you got to do what you got to do for sure.
Totally, man. Well, even like, I mean, back then tattooing was like, you know, you were like beholden to the tattoo artist. You come up there and be like, no, I'm not doing that. Okay, well, that's the end of the discussion. Like, there's no.
Yeah, that was one of the things that kept me out of tattooing. Was like, I just was like, you know, the fourth time in one day that somebody wants me to tattoo the fucking Tasmanian devil coming out of the crack of their ass, I'm fucking quitting.
Yeah,
there's no way.
Yeah, well, back then it was all flash work, man. I remember, like, I was a kid. My best friend growing up in high school, we were like the 9th grade, and it was Tracy Nicastro, and her dad was like this kind of like biker dude-ish, you know. She went to go get like her first tattoo. It was like a rose over here. She was like, dude, she was like 15, 14, and went to this place, Captain Jack's in northeastern New Jersey. It was like a small, maybe 600 square foot, and it had the tattoo flash on the ceiling and the walls, and it was just like one of those, just that shit. Because for me, like all that stuff, like motorcycle shit, Evel Knievel, biker shit, like all that stuff was like burned in my brain since I was a fucking, as long as I can remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I just watched that, Being Knievel.
So
Christy, my wife, Christy, she wasn't like hip to the Evel Knievel thing, really. Like, I don't think it was in her consciousness when in the 70s or 80s. Like when he was a thing, I don't think it ever entered into her. But it was like Evel Knievel was like God to me. Like he wasn't even a real human being. He was literally like comic book hero. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even consider him to be like a real person. I was watching that documentary and I was like, and it like flashed back to me that holy shit, like I literally worshipped Evel Knievel for the first like 8 years of my life.
Yeah, me too, dude. Fucking building ramps and fucking all kinds of shit.
It's that same thing. Like he's just like, fuck it. Let's make it. Let's do it. Like there was no like, will it work? I don't know. Let's build it and see if it works. Let's build a steam rocket and see if we can fly across a canyon. Like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, he was out of his fuck. That whole scene where he's just like beating that. He's got a fucking arm in a cast and he's beating that guy with a bat. The guy that wrote that book about him, like that. It's a really hard book to get. That book about whatever. And he fucking showed up to the dude's work and beat him.
He went on a rough run. Like he went on a rough run there for a while towards the end. But it's funny because I painted an ice hockey goalie mask that was his helmet basically, and I posted it on Instagram and I put in the hashtags and stuff. And his family, who like still handled all the licensing, like they all started following me and they were like, "Oh my God, this is so cool!" And I got a lot of props from the Knievel family for that one.
Oh, that's pretty rad, dude. Because that could have
right. No, it went totally perfect. They were like, "This is the coolest thing! Oh my God!" And like they were tagging all their family members, so it was like the whole entire Knievel family was checking it out. So yeah, that was super cool. So with your jewelry stuff, I know. I think when people think like, "Oh, he makes jewelry," it's probably just like all like beautiful rings and stuff. But your stuff was always really pretty edgy.
Yeah, like I said, I just kind of always just kind of made. I remember like it was all very heavy process, especially early on. It was a lot of just like almost blacksmithing and jewelry making combined, which silver, ferrous and non-ferrous metals, you don't really shape them the same way, but whatever. It was very labor intensive. And then I remember I was living in Brooklyn, and my friend Adam went to go see Lightning Bolt.
I remember that band.
And I just remember, like, I was just on fire. Like, I was just like, after the show, like, my mind was just like sensory overload, you know what I mean? And I came home, and it kind of like, I don't know if that show inspired this, but it's, being in that environment kind of unleashed something, and it started this whole like little line of jewelry, which was, again, it was a little bit more refined, and some of the rings were like, it looked like a corset, but like in my mind it wasn't a corset, it was like a suture ring. I was like stitching, like more of a like mad scientist kind of thing, and then again I just started selling it, and it was that time the window was perfect for that stuff. It was like, I wasn't making things that I thought people would want. I was making things that I liked. And it just happened to be a time where like, that's just kind of what was going on. And maybe it was because like I was in the middle of something and didn't really realize it, because it was just, I was in the middle of it. And then there was also, I have, John Jesse. Yeah. Well, he did this, a series years and years ago, Demon Erotica. And he played in a band with my friend Denise, and I knew Denise for a while and whatever.
Oh, the band Nausea?
No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Nausea. Oh yeah.
The original crust band.
But the original, and anyway, she invited me to go do this show. I think it was at the Beauty Bar, or it might have been at Otto Shrunken Head, and it was like one of the first places where I'm going to sell my stuff. Like, and this is probably like mid '90s, and I saw that Demon Erotica stuff, and there's something about some of those paintings that kind of inspired me. So I started kind of making this weapon jewelry. So like big butcher knives, big kind of cold, like a chef knife, but they all were, like made in a way that were slightly skewed, and so they had like a kind of a wickedness to them. And that kind of took off because big chunky jewelry was in, and then belt buckles. They started doing this stuff with like vintage car emblems, and then brake lights and brake pedals, clutch pedals, and all that stuff really took off. And it treated me well for a long time. I'd go to do trade shows. I eventually started doing trade shows, but back then I remember just going to places and going to a store and just showing up with like a bag of shit and putting it out. And I remember like showing Jimmy Webb when he was still alive in that Trash and Vaudeville, and then he was like, "You got to go to Soho and see this woman Sarah." And that's like, it's like that thing. It's the same thing with the goalie mask. Once you kind of put yourself out there and it gets this response, it's this thing. It kind of takes on a life of its own course, and I think it's up to the individual to see where that wants
right
to go.
Yeah, and that's the thing that kind of gets talked about on this show a bit, is that there are people who are just insanely talented, that I know, that we all in the creative industries know, who they're just always kind of waiting for, like, I don't know if this is the right time or if I'm good enough, and they don't want to show somebody something. And it's like, you gotta just get to it. Like, if you just sit around waiting forever for you to feel right about it, like you could have been doing it. You know what I mean? And it's like, I wish more people, and I don't know, it's a weird thing because I'm an introvert, but at some point I realized that all the things I wanted to accomplish in life, I could never do if I was an introvert. I could never sing in a band. I could never put my art out into the world if I was it too internalized. So I just started faking it. Like I just started pretending that I was an extrovert. And so, like even like one of my very best friends, lifelong best friends, like, he just works a job, you know what I mean? He's every bit as talented as I've ever been. And, he just works a job and does his art as like a side thing. And it's like, God love him. If that, he just didn't, I don't think he really had it in him to make a go of it in that way. And like, I have family too that's the same way. They just like, you can't really make a living as an artist. So, you go and you get a job doing something. And it's like, that was never an option. It was never an option for me. The job that I got was an art job. Like when I had my kids and I had to support them, it's like, what job can I do as an artist that I get to go every day and do and make a good living? And that's how I ended up in video games. Even though I'm never a huge gamer, like on a real level, like there are games that I like that I've played a lot. And actually right now I'm like, me and my brother-in-law are getting really into, sim racing, F1 sim racing. So we both just bought steering wheel and pedal setup. So every Saturday we're racing online. Nice. And so I'm a little bit of a gamer, but when I was in the industry, like, it's that thing of like the guy who works at the candy factory can't stand candy after a while. And I didn't play games for a decade after I got out of that business. I was so burnt on it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't wear jewelry like at all. I mean, there was a time when I wore all that stuff. I don't even wear a wedding band. I got like my wife's initial tattooed on my hand because it's just, I wear some belt buckles and stuff like that, but, key rings, because it's like, I went in, like Spragworks kind of turned into this like kind of utilitarian kind of thing. It's like things I use all the time, I just make my own. I was like, I carried trucker wallets my whole life. So then I kind of made a version that worked for me. Keychains, or it's like, we got dogs, I was going to make dog collars and harnesses. It's like, that's kind of like how it goes, but, hold on, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
And silence my phone. But it's that thing that, dude, like my wife is an amazing fucking like illustrator, drawer, like fucking like she just like
I've seen some of her work online. Like, she is really talented.
I was like, but she just doesn't want to do it. Like, I mean, she does it. her creative, it came out this other way, but it's not what she wanted to do. And I think because there's this thing of like when you're going, and granted, like I don't have an art background, which is the irony because it's like, I work at Lackman Museum, I've worked for some pretty major fucking huge artists and stuff, and I've had some amazing opportunities that I just kind of walked into, but it's this expectation that you're gonna make, making money from art is like not an easy.
No, it's a grind. It's a daily grind.
And then there's also
it's literally a daily grind.
Yeah, and there's this and I think there's this expectation now more than ever that like everyone should be, it's kind of why I stopped doing shows. It's like people that make jewelry. The term jewelry is just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, the fuck, that's not jewelry. But whatever. I try not to get judgmental, but all that shit worked because no matter whatever show I did, like, because my shit was always different and weird and kind of macabre. It was always like this dark cloud and this. I used to do a lot of shows with my friend Scott Mawkins. He had this brand, Father Panic, and we were kind of like always like we're the dark cloud in the fucking in the sea of rainbow and unicorns, because there's always some bummed out boyfriend or something like that that's like walking with their chick and they find our booth and they're like, no fucking way, this shit's awesome, and but it's ultimately, man, like being around you got to, like you said, dude, you got to put yourself out there, and like this would happen all the time. I would make something and be like, dude, like just not happy with it. And I'd put it out there and that would be the piece that someone would love, because of this weird imperfection or whatever. At some point, man, it's also, I'm not making fine art or anything.
Yeah, your stuff is super,
and stuff, but
it's super well crafted, but it's, it's raw, it's like got a raw, it's not dainty in any way. You know what I mean? Like it's almost industrial-ish in a way, but so nicely made.
Some of the engagement rings, so how a lot of it works now is like some people, like I got this client now that some of my clients I've had for a really long time, man. Like they've been with me for fucking like 15 years, you know what I mean? And they'll like either collect the stuff I do or like, for a while, like as people were getting married or, I was like doing wedding bands and engagement rings like crazy. And, a lot of custom stuff. It's like, and I love that, dude. I mean, that's like sitting down and like, well, first of all, someone like choosing you to kind of like represent this, like this monumental step you're taking in your life. Like you want like, your artwork to kind of represent like, eternal love, like whether it works out there or not, it's pretty fucking rad. And then just getting into the process with them, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if you do this with some of your stuff, but it's like, working together. Like I got this client now, it's their 5-year wedding anniversary. I made their wedding bands and engagement rings 5 years ago, and they want to do this like organic woven thing that looks like it's like a vine, and I don't know.
It's like the only thing I don't do in the creative realms. And with my new art channel, I might just like do a little segment of me trying to figure out how to do it, because why the hell not?
Oh, you got to do it. You got to do it. But like to try to sculpt a rock, you would think that would be easy. It's fucking hard, dude. Like, cause it's like, if it's not right, it just looks wrong. There's something about the So like we were just camping this weekend, and the way I work is like I get a job and I say I'll do it, and then I'm thinking like, well, I don't know how I'm gonna fucking do it, and then I think about it. I fucking think about it. It's all that goes on in my head, and all of a sudden I wake up one day and I'm like, oh, that's how to do it. So it's like we were on this trip. I found like there was this like interesting kind of a tree in our campground, and I took it and I was able to braid it and wove it all up, and now I'll go home and bring it to the shop and make a silicone mold of it and cast it. And there's a lot of this particular one is no bug parts, but I've a lot of like insect components or just taking texture stamps off of whatever, man. Like what when I was a little kid, no rock was left unturned because I was looking for shit, and I'm the same way. Like as an adult, like I'm always. For a while there, a couple of months ago, I got super obsessed into collecting like these like their date nails on telephone poles.
Oh, just the
You ever
old
see that?
rusty nails. Oh no, I
Yeah,
know what
hold
you're
on a
talking
second.
about.
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. They're like those little tin plaque things.
They're like, you
Oh,
see that?
yep.
Yeah, they're these big nails. This one says 71. It's the year I was born. But, all telephone poles have them.
Interesting.
Like, because it's the date that they were put up. And then sometimes there's they'll have another thing that's like an orientation, like what kind of pole it was. Like, I got so into that thing, dude. In I was carrying around these like special pliers. In like 3 weeks, I think I have like 400 of them at my shop. Like, I'm late for dinner because I'm like fucking like, everywhere I go. And I was like that as a kid, like with chrome caps or like whatever it was. Like, there's still that obsessive part of my brain that just goes
a lot of
on
Echo
and
Park
on.
like was built like 110 years ago, 120 years
yeah.
ago. Like you could probably find some with old dates on them in Echo Park.
Yeah, I found the majority of them in Echo Park are around 1930.
That must have been when they started putting in all the main electrical, all the electrical stuff.
There's a couple different. Yeah, some old telephone poles they're like that stuff's burned into them. But anyway, the point being is like I get these ideas, and I just, whether it's just like collecting something or making something, I just get obsessed with it, dude. And it just like, it kind of takes over because there's definite, like, I've never been diagnosed or anything, but it's pretty safe to say that I have some like OCD
I have
stuff
definitely
going on,
been
you know what I mean?
diagnosed with OCD, so I've been living with that
like counting all that
for the last 20 years. But you know what I've noticed is that the less stressed I am, the less it crops up. The more stressed I am, the worse it is. But total digression on
Me
that.
too, man.
But yeah, dude, that's like, I mean, that's, I think that goes with anybody who makes anything, like a creative type of people. We are obsessive people. And I think it makes us overcome the other parts of our personality that might keep us from doing what it is we want to do. Like we're just too obsessed with conquering whatever, there's something inside of us that we need to get out. You know what I mean? Whether you're an actor or a writer or a filmmaker or a sculptor or whatever it is, if you have something inside of you that you have to get out into the world, those are the people who end up doing it. You know what I mean?
I feel like it's our duty. Like, it's like, it sound like some kind of like new age fucking weirdo, but like, it's just my job to transmit that idea. Just take it from here and bring it from there, and it's your job. And there's a part of me that dies if I don't do that. Like I fucking slowly die if I'm not true to myself, which is to make to make stuff and still look at the world with a curiosity and it's still like equally amazed on how things are made, and that's a big thing for me of like how things are made. Wanting to like make it better or borrow a process to do something, which is pretty.
I'm having a mosquito attack. I am having I have an infestation again this year of mosquitoes, and I was just fighting one off. For anybody who's watching me not pay attention, yeah,
those are fuckers, dude. Those like little striped ones are fucking like. If I'm in my garage working on my car, dude, they like the minute it gets like the sun goes down, they're like, it's
so bad. I've got, it's like every day I've got, half a dozen bites. You mentioned something interesting where you're like, you said you have a project and you'll just be like, you'll take all these days where you're like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And then at some point it just like, you're like, this is how I'm going to do it. It took my wife, it took her a little while of watching me be a professional artist to understand that. She's like, well, you've got this job. Why don't just like get to it? Like, why aren't you getting to it? And I'm like, it just doesn't work like that. Like, I have to figure it out. Like, and then like, there's like a famous, I don't even know if it's famous. There's a quote that I heard recently that was specific to drawing, where it's like, I need 12 hours to draw in a day. And 8 of those hours are getting ready to draw. You know, it's like sometimes you have to work your way up and into position to get to doing something like that. And so I can totally relate to that, where I'm like, I'll just be in bed like night after night. And then one night, like 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll just like wide awake. And I'm like, you've figured out how you're going to do it. And then good luck getting back to sleep. Yeah, it is that weird thing where you're like, you know, it just pops in there. At its own will.
Yeah, it really does. And sometimes it's like I do some, like, for me sometimes, like, I just got to clean my shop.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, I'm just going to clean everything, and then I just got to, I don't know, man, like, because there's work and then there's things I need to do, which are often work related. Like for now, like right now, it's like I've got this other car I'm working on, and I mean, it's all I want to do. It's like I lose myself in like making parts, and it's that I have this realization that it's like the things that I love to do are work. It's all fucking work. It's like working on a car, do some gardening, like whatever it is.
That's like another thing that people don't understand is like I don't like not doing anything, like going on vacation and like not doing anything is like torture. Like I want to be at home in my space where I can make stuff, whatever it is. And my personal workaround for that whole thing of like, if I'm not ready for a specific project, I always have 10 different things in the fire. So I'll just do something easy first, like something I can get accomplished. Like I have this menial little task, like I have to send some files to someone or get some files ready or do color separations for a t-shirt design. And I just do that stuff because then I've accomplished something and it's way easier for me to get into the next thing. Whereas like, but there's always like that one big project, right? And it's the shiny new toy that you want to play with. And sometimes that sucks up all of the air in the room and you can't get those little things done. And then it's like, someone's like, it's the exact opposite. And someone's like, hey dude, you're supposed to send me those color separations like a week ago. And I'm like, sorry, I got this new thing I'm doing. And it's like, I'm sure that having a car sitting in your shop that you want to work on has got to be torturous like that.
Oh yeah, it's just a time management thing. And there's just like, I mean, you've been to my shop. There's no shortage of like a tool that needs to be fixed or some other weird thing. Like I'm always working on something for myself, like art wise or whatever.
Yeah, your shop's super cool shop. It's like the ultimate like dude cave shop. It's like all metal, greasy metal and rough edges. And yeah, I love that place. Every time I had a chance to come hang out there, I felt like it was home.
Yeah, I really, for a while there, it was a pretty cool scene because I sublet some spaces out and some friends that were just all doing some really cool shit there. And it was like, I don't know, man. It's like, this thing happens, again, without sounding too mushy or anything, but when you get like on the right track and doing stuff and you're doing it for the right reasons and you're in the mix, like just, I don't know, man, life kind of happens. Like I was listening to this like David Lynch fucking thing, and he was talking about, living the artist life, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just really important. Like I remember early on, like I had this mentor, and talking about quitting my job and making jewelry. He's like, well, you need to find a mentor. He's like, you need to ask somebody, find someone that's kind of do what you want to do, and just ask them how you do it. And somewhere along the way, that kind of I have no problem asking questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it kind of like you do it for long enough, it comes full circle. And like, I have some people that, come to the shop and they want to, learn some stuff and teach us some stuff. And my work isn't so consistent where I could actually have like a helper because I'm kind of all over the place,
Same here.
I don't know if I'm so used to working alone that it's like
forever with the goalie mask stuff. People like, just get somebody to come in and sand sand mass for you. You can get them done way faster. And it's like, A, they're not going to ever do it how I want them to do it.
Never.
And B,
Never.
every now and then I'd have my son come in and help me do prep work because, I could literally make him do it exactly how I wanted. But yeah, it's just that weird thing of like it's just sometimes it's harder to have help than it is to just get it done.
No, absolutely, 100%. It really is, but then there's this like I could work on a crew or whatever if I need to. I could, like sometimes.
Yeah, it's the other way around when it's like equal workload. And I should say, shout out to my friend Tom Barnes, who used to come and help me all the time and did an amazing job. I don't want him to listen to this and be like, Mike thinks I didn't do a good job.
Yeah, that motherfucker.
No, he's literally like the nicest person I know, and he's such a cool dude. But anyway, and kind of that thing. This is like a good place for us to go into the sculpture, the piece of sculpture. It's at the LACMA that you work, right? The LA Museum of Contemporary Art. Rich works on a piece called Metropolis Tube that was by an artist named Chris Burden, and it's kind of it's like the ultimate Hot Wheel track, right? It's like this giant, massive 40-foot by 40-foot sculpture, and it's got like 8 lanes of cars that run on this continuous track around these buildings, and it looks kind of like downtown Los Angeles, and it's like and it looks kind of like LA traffic, and it's this massive sculpture. And I'll post pictures and some video if I can find it so people can see what I'm talking about. And so you actually helped build that, and you actually operate it at the museum, right?
Yeah, I don't operate it so much anymore, but I was on a crew through like a series of other jobs working. I got hooked up with the studio manager at Chris Burden's place because I heard about the sculpture they were building. And, I wound up getting the job. And originally it was just 3 of us. It was Zach and this guy, Frank, and myself, and Chris's idea. And we just kind of built it. And it took us about 4 or 5 years. And the crew went from like 3 to sometimes it was like 10 people, was kind of always expanding and contracting. And but myself and Frank stayed on it the whole time. And then when a collector bought it, he lent it to LACMA for long-term loan. And then when we were installing it at LACMA, which was a complete fucking nightmare.
You had mentioned that before, that's privately owned. I can't imagine buying something like that or owning something like that. It's when people who are listening or watching on YouTube see it, you're going to be like, somebody owns that?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And to own it and pay, he bought 3 pieces.
Oh
he
my
bought
God.
Ghost Ship, which is these 3 sailboats. And then he bought Metropolis too. Then he bought something else. But, for a shitload of money. But anyway, when we installed that at LACMA, the conservation department, they offered us jobs. And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll fucking do it. Why not? It was good money and it was fun. And then I ran it for a while when initially we would maintain it and I would operate it. And then I slowly phased out of that because I just didn't want to work on the weekends and stuff. And I wanted to focus on my thing. You know what I mean? Because that job saved my ass. When fucking 2008 came and the fucking...
the collapse.
All the stores I was selling to by 2010, they were all fucking gone. Jen had gotten laid off. And I was working up there full time. That job saved my fucking ass, man. Big time. Man, I'm still there. I've been working on it for fucking almost 13 years.
That's amazing. It's such a cool piece. And I remember you told me that the cars that go on the track, you guys actually designed and had built. That's fucking mosquito. He's destroying me right now.
I just saw him fly by.
Fuck. That the cars were custom to that track because they run up the conveyor on a magnetic system, and that was even cooler. Because I just finished at the right at the beginning of the pandemic lockdown. I just finished working on the relaunch of Micro Machines, the little tiny toy cars, and I'm a die-cast car collector. I've hundreds. I bet I have 1,000 of them. But it was cool to hear it was cool to hear that you guys actually had those cars custom made. Like that's super cool.
Oh yeah, we were able to sit down with that because the Metropolis One, which is I think it's in Tokyo at the a modern museum of art over there.
Is it also a track based car system like that?
It is, but it's based off of just store bought stuff like the wiggly fucking plastic tracks. Like Metropolis 2, we hand built all of those tracks and shit like that. Like heated up and bent into place, and it's all totally different thing. But those cars on Metropolis 1 were just homemade. Like the noses and tails were ground off, and they glued on rubber bumpers, and they glued magnets underneath it. So these, we had them. We sat down with a guy that worked for Mattel who had a hookup in China for the factory that made Hot Wheels cars, and we sat down and we're like, this is what we want. We want this many body, we want 3 different style cars, but we want 3 different style chassis, but with like 2 different body styles that can fit each chassis. We need it needs to have a stainless steel axle. It needs to have a magnet. We want these rubber. So it was pretty cool, man. I mean, that whole job was like that.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Like, we were super, super involved on all of it. You know what I mean? Like Chris would just, it was his vision, and he paid for it, and ultimately he had the final say of what was to stay or go. But that was just it was. Plus to see how his whole scene works.
Yeah. You were saying he's up in Topanga Canyon, which for people who aren't familiar with Los Angeles County, it is a very unique part of Los Angeles where it kind of connects the San Fernando Valley to like Malibu, and it's the mountains. It's like there's hillbillies and stuff up there. It's like. In the 60s, a lot of like the Crosby, Stills, Nash, Joni Mitchell people had places up there, and a lot of those people are still up there actually. And yeah, it's a cool place. And I was surprised that there was a space up there big enough that they could build something on the scale of what you guys built.
Well, Chris started buying property up there like in the mid 70s. Like he would sell something and buy a small plot of land. So they got like an 80-acre ranch up there. That's like organic avocados and plum trees and kumquats and all this like crazy shit that they maintain. So that was part of one of the perks. You'd go up there, the pay wasn't the best, but it was decent enough. But you get to be able to like walk the ranch.
That's a long drive from East LA, dude.
Dude,
I live 10 miles from there, and it's a long drive.
Yeah. 50 minutes. No matter without traffic.
And good luck not having traffic. It's funny that it's like the 2 stories are melding back in my mind that we talked last time, because as part of your jewelry stuff, you found yourself on a TV show, on a reality show making jewelry. And I remember you telling me that you'd be working on the sculpture at the museum, and the teenage girls would come and be like, oh, I saw you on Project. I saw you on Project Accessory.
Yeah, because it was like a spin-off of Project Runway, and it's the same fucking deal. You know what I mean? It was a competition show, and I had made it all the way to the final fucking show, and but it aired the same time that piece opened, and I just happened to be operating it, and LA Times took a photo of it, and so there was like a picture of me standing in the middle of the fucking sculpture, like in the art section. And it was bizarre, dude. It was like literally like there was a moment where like seriously like teenage girls are asking me for my autograph, and I was just like really uncomfortable about shit, because it's like I don't really have any interest in being famous, you know what I mean? Like
it's gonna get in the way of getting work
to stick out for itself, but yeah, man, it's just like I'm just not. And we talked about a little bit a while ago. Like, it's just not. I just like autonomy and stuff. Not to say that I had this moment of being famous, but it was the way everything worked out. It was an interesting time. It was really flattering, and it was that TV show was a great opportunity. I mean, it got me kind of really focused on sewing and making handbags and wallets, and then it kind of, got super into casting insects and insect components for, because that show, it's like bullshit. You can't make it, it's like you have 8 hours to make a pair of shoes, a handbag, and a matching necklace. It's just like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like, the first episode making shoes, like everyone's hands were clean. Like it was an interesting experience that I'm really grateful that I did. I don't know if I would do it again, but I would tell someone else if they had an opportunity, they should do it. It was like,
sure.
It was really challenging, man. It was like I made the worst thing I've ever made in my life. I just happened to make on that show, and you're getting judged for it. I mean, there's like, who was his name? Was it like Calvin Klein? I don't know. What's that fucking, I don't know. One of the judges up there. And it's just like, I was just, you're up there getting judged, and I made this handbag. It was so bad, dude. And I was like, and they're starting to judge me. I'm like, dude, you're not telling me anything I don't know. Like, this is the worst thing I've made, and I'm on a fucking television. Like, like whatever. But it was that thing, and that was coming up a lot on that show, was like this thing of like being true to myself. Like, what, like, because there's a lot of that commercial stuff, like, I don't fucking care about, man. Like, this is something I struggle with now, even, like, like, do I really need to be making more stuff? Like, do we really need more stuff? I don't know. I've had some friends say that, yes, we should make more stuff. I got this bandana idea that's actually getting silk screened right now that I made. Whatever. I'm great at making stuff. I'm not that good at selling, But for a while there, like, that TV show kind of helped propel, like, the custom jewelry stuff. Like, I still get stuff and make stuff for people. I've never met them before. They're, like, fucking across the country or whatever. And, I mean, that was a while ago. That was, like, 8 years ago. But it was ultimately a great experience. And then I had some other opportunities to, like, some friends that worked at Guitar World. And they, we spoke about Josh Bernstein.
Shout out Josh Bernstein.
Yeah, Josh.
Bootsy Rizak.
And yeah, man. And he, they'll make the Golden God Awards, and we made the Scully Awards, and we made the Hand of Doom Awards. And that was just awesome stuff that pushed me creatively, and, an opportunity to work with people that are super talented, and, and it was just really fun. And this is something else I think we spoke about the last time, is this idea of, like, when you're doing stuff like that, it's like you're choosing to be basically a background singer. Like, my job often, if I'm making something, it's not about the problem. It's about whatever it's going into being made. It's not about the award. It's about the person getting the award. It's not about this piece of jewelry I made for a commercial. It's about the fucking commercial. And it's this thing of, like, being okay with being the guy behind the curtain in Oz, like, making it all work. I like that.
Right before in the year leading up to, the pandemic stuff, I'd started doing like graphic design stuff for props for TV shows and commercials and stuff. And so, yeah, I totally understand. It's like, you look at it and you're like, oh, hey, I made that thing that's, like, on TV right now. And, like, there's no glory in it, but it's still cool.
No, it is, but see, it's like, I'm the kind of person that I want to know that kind of shit, because I tweak out on shit like that. Most people don't they don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, I love talking shop. I don't care whatever shop you're doing. If you're fucking good at it and you love it, then I want to know how you're doing it, man, and talk about it. I mean, it's basically what you're doing with this podcast, which
definitely
great.
Is going to be with the art channel, is like, people love to watch people making things and seeing their process or whatever. And it's like, I'm, like, insanely addicted to these YouTube channels where, like, one of them is, like, I watch this guy make, like, planted terrariums and like, just, like, these tanks for reptiles, and it's like the most entertaining thing in the world. And I watch another one where this guy's just got this big piece of land in Florida, and he's like, has all these reptiles, like iguanas and snakes and stuff. And I just watch him take care of his animals, or, like, painter painting or, you know, whatever it is. Like this amazing channel from this couple in Norway. This girl just makes like fantasy stuff. Like she'll make a staff, you know, like with a glowing orb in the top, or maybe, you know, one day she like painted the side of her van, like with a Bob Ross inspired, you know, landscape. And it's just like,
Right.
It is the best hour and a half before bed watching you could possibly get. Cause it's going to mellow you right out.
Yeah. It gets the wheels turning. I love watching shit like that too, man. I went down a whole fish tank wormhole like fucking 6 months ago. Like I was going to get back into getting an aquarium.
Dude, totally.
I went deep. I went so deep that I came out the bottom. I was like, I'm not doing that shit. Like, fuck that.
Dude, totally. That's amazing. Yeah. So, you know, it's just talking to people like you. It's like, you know, get up every day and make it happen. You know, that's the kind of show that this is really turned into, is, you know, just people who that's the people who I somehow managed to surround myself with in my life, is just people who get up and get it done every day, whether it's, you know, editing, you know, film, or, you know, going to work in special effects, or being in a band, or making jewelry, or, you know, I have a woman coming on, she'll air before you, who's, you know, she's like a major league hairstylist, travels all over the country, you know, cutting famous people's hair. You know what I mean? And I love it. Like, whatever you got for me, like if you are somebody who gets out in the world and does your thing, you end up on this show, I hope, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you're doing a pretty rad service. I mean, I think kids today, not that there's kids watching your show, but maybe there are. It's like you give them access because for me, like I knew that the college life wasn't for me or whatever, you know, but there was this whole, like, I didn't want to be a tradesman. I really wasn't able to see a future that like had a lot of freedom to be your own boss, and there's a lot of other shit that goes into that stuff, but to just kind of be there and showing people that it's possible. I had the opportunity a few years ago to go to they asked me to go to career day, dude, at like a grammar school in South Central. So I rolled down there with my pickup truck, my hot rod, and I fucking set up all this different shit, jewelry, awards, welding stuff. And man, talking to those kids, it was the fucking best thing in the world, dude. Like, it was like, I mean, most of the kids, they didn't give a shit. But you could see the twinkle in the eye of the little kid, of the certain kids that fucking cared. Like, I could see myself in them, you know what I mean? Because, like, that's the shit that, like, I remember. And then I got this wall in my shop, like in my sewing room, it's just a wall of like thank you letters that people have sent me over the years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like a whole fucking wall. And those little kids, man, they sent me like a stack of them. And it was
that's amazing.
I don't know, man. It's pretty rad to see people be interested in stuff that you do and see it like seeing a person just, you know, whatever it is you're doing, inspire them to kind of either have a question or maybe like see a different direction for themselves. Like that's, I don't know, man, that's kind of magical stuff.
It really is. I mean, it really is. And you know, I hope that there are, you know, I get statistics for my show, and the majority of the viewers and the majority of the people who listen to the audio version, they're in our age group. And so, but there is definitely a little stat for people in the, you know, like 16 to 25 age group. And I hope that would grow. I mean, of course, they don't want to watch some old guy talk to his old guy friends very much, I don't think. But, but I hope some do. And that the thing that they get out of it is like, it's just that thing, like, just do it. Just like get up. You don't have to wait for permission from anybody. Just do your thing, and just keep doing it until it's the thing that you do.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, the great thing about what you're doing is like there's a fucking archive of it. So it's like if this thing, you know, as it builds momentum, people are going to go back to look. I don't know. For me, like if I find the new band, most of the time I go to the first record.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? Or if it's like a podcast that I listen to, there's a couple other ones I listen to. I go deep. I want to start.
Well, I hope people start with the newest episode and work backwards, because I've gotten better at it. And I don't want them to start at the first one and be like, this guy's a fucking jerk off. I want them to start and work their way back and watch me get better at it.
Yeah, no, you're doing a good job, dude. I'm looking forward to that YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'm like starting to work on stuff for that.
Watch you have a fucking have a meltdown trying to figure out.
Dude, I've always when I was in video games, I had to do 3D modeling in a computer, and so I kind of got some three-dimensional. I got it in my head a little bit on how to make things in a three-dimensional way, but anytime I've ever tried to sculpt anything, I suffer from that thing where there's a threshold of how good I am at it. Like there's some things like I'm good enough right away that I'll just become absolutely obsessed with getting better at it. But then there's some things where I'm not quite good enough and it doesn't tip the right way. And I'm like, it's going to take me so long to learn how to sculpt that I could be painting and getting better at painting. But I do like the idea of learning how to do it and having people watch me do it. But
my instinct is that sculpting will make you
I have no doubt, because one of the things that I struggle with in all of my artwork is understanding how light strikes objects in any kind of
I struggle with that
realistic manner. And I think maybe being able to create a three-dimensional object while light's hitting it maybe something will click in there. Like, my style of painting and my style of illustration is fully dependent on my lack of understanding of lighting.
Yeah, I mean, I've always struggled with that for sure. When I got if I practice, I'd be a decent drawer, not an illustrator, but a drawer. I can, but it's three-dimensional is always easy. But I don't do it enough that I'm super proficient at it. You know what I mean? And there's tricks that you could do that I've had some friends show me along the way that make things a lot easier, little tips and tricks. And ultimately, no matter what you're doing, you can't be afraid to fuck up.
Definitely.
You just gotta fuck. But and this happens a lot, making stuff for people, a piece of furniture or a piece of art, like a quote unquote designer gives you a rendering, and you look at it and it's well, what the fuck do you want this whole other? There's 3 other sides. What do you want that to look like? How is this gonna hook up to any of that shit? It's impossible. It's so there's this thing of I don't know. Not that everyone has to know everything, but the more we know about the different things that we do, it just makes us whole and complete, and more of it just makes us more dynamic as artists.
Sure, absolutely. All right, man. I think let me let you go about the rest of your life. I think I've used up enough of your time between this and the last, and I have to go. I have to go kill this mosquito before it kills me. I've gotten 10 bites since we've been sitting here.
You don't have a zapper or anything?
That is a whole nother story. I invested in a high-tech one and then a low-tech one, and neither of them worked.
Yeah. I got there's a space the way our garage is, there's a roofed-in outside shop, dude, that's got those cluster flies in it, dude. It's Amityville horror back there, dude. It's a battle. I keep trying to fucking do, it's I was saying to my wife, I was I gotta call an exterminator. I'm done. I can't. It's there's hundreds of giant flies back there. It's fucked up.
Yes, even Los Angeles has wildlife.
Yes. Insects.
All right, man. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you coming back and doing this again with me. It was a really good time and an interesting listen. I think people will enjoy listening to us talk about how we get up every day and do our work.
Yeah, man. It was a lot of fun, dude. It's always great to catch up, and
for sure.
I really dig what you're doing, dude.
Thanks, man. Same to you.
It's good stuff.
All right, man.
Take it easy.